Hello, it's Lee here from the Infinite Actuary, and today I'm here to talk to you about the updates that we have rolling out in TIA Study 3.4. We're actually going to include a couple of updates for things we've rolled out a little bit sooner as well. The big one for today, though, is lesson notes, and this is the first step toward being able to add your own personalized notes to almost every area of TIA Study. Today we're going to do it for the lessons. Then we're going to talk about the keyboard shortcuts that have changed. We've got a few things that have affected our Learn tab. Most of the things that we're talking about today will affect our Discuss and our Practice tabs. And then finally, we have a few updates to our discussion threads to talk about. One is we're going to include some links to video solutions for our problem threads or directly back to our lessons for our other threads. And then also, you'll now be able to include images or files in your discussion thread posts. So let's go ahead and take a look at how these look in TIA Study. So we're going to start our demonstration here in the Learn tab with our new Notes feature. And so here's the icon that we'll use to open our notes for this lesson. So you might have a lot of different reasons for taking notes in the lesson. Maybe in this case, I want to remember that it's the A of 1 that appears first in this formula. So I might want to add that here in the box. And so now I can see that all of our typical markdown features that we have in our Discuss thread posts are going to work here in Notes as well. I've got asterisks around first that make it italics, and I've got double asterisks around interest rate that are going to make that bold. We do have 3 different views here as well. We can just do the whole screen view of just the notes, not in the edited form, and then also a full screen editor here as well. But going back to the one where we share, take a quick look here at the other things we can do. Most of this is what we can do in discussion threads, and eventually it will be exactly the same as what we can do in discussion threads. The only thing that's currently missing from this menu as compared to what you can do in the discuss threads is that we can't currently add full files. You can still include images here, but not full files yet. We're working toward that later on. So once you've got your note the way you want it, you can close the note window using this icon here. Now the other change to our Learn tab that we need to discuss involves the keyboard shortcut for going full screen and the way that that's impacted what we do for flagging the lesson. We used to use F for flagging the lesson, but we can't do that anymore because we're now going to use F for full screen. So if I press F, I'm going to go full screen with my video, and as you can see there, if I hit escape, I'll come back to theater mode, and escape again brings me back to the original view. If we're in full screen mode having pressed F, then we can also hit F again to actually return us directly back to the view that we came from. But because F is now full screen, F is no longer flag. So how do we flag a lesson now? Well, we're going to use G. I think it's because lowercase g looks a little bit like a flag. So you can see I've pressed lowercase g, I've now flagged the lesson, and that means that it will show up as flagged here, it will show up as flagged here, and if I filter my view on flagged lessons only, I'll see that it's been added to my flagged lessons view here. So now I'm going to remove that flag by pressing G again. It's gone away from that flagged lessons list, and now if I go back out, I'll be back out to my A12 or my section A1 list of lessons there on the left-hand side. Now the bookmarking shortcut has not changed, so you can press B and that's going to allow you to add a bookmark for this specific time point in this lesson. And finally, just going back to our notes for one last second, notice that because we now have something in this note, the Take Note icon is now filled in with color to let us know that there really is something there. If I click on that button, I'll find the note that I typed before. So next I want to move to the Review tab. And in the Review tab, there are a couple of different ways that we can review our cards. I'll start with the Browse All Cards mode, where in this mode we can now use our arrow keys to completely navigate our situation here. So I can press to the right to move from one card to the next. I can move left through the other cards this way. If I press up, that's going to mark the card as good. If I press down, it's going to mark the card as again. And I can always use the space bar to flip my card over. And a new addition is that you can now use the W, A, S, and D keys in place of the arrow keys if you prefer to keep your hand a little bit further over to the left of your keyboard. So in that case, D is going to move us to the right, A is going to move us to the left, W pretends to be the up key, and S pretends to be the down key. And that's going to work when we get over to practice in just a few moments as well. And in this view, we don't have flags for our flashcards, but we do have tags, and you can tag your flashcard simply by hitting T and entering your tag there. Now, if we're in the review inbox, things work a little bit differently. If we press to the right or up, we'll mark this card as a good card. So up would mark it as good, but also pressing to the right will mark it as good. On the other hand, pressing to the left will also mark this as an again card, as well as pressing down. And that carries over to our W, A, S, and D keys as well. D and W will cause this card to be marked as good. A and S will cause the card to be marked as again. So now moving over to practice, similar keyboard shortcuts are now available. Let's start with Browse All Problems. So if we're here, we can use left and right to move back and forth between our flashcards. Up and down doesn't do anything for us, but Enter will allow us to view the solution at any time. So now if I go to the next problem, I can mark this. Maybe I want to guess my answer is C here. Now if I hit Enter, that's going to submit my answer and show me the video solution at once. Now here I do have full screen mode, so I can use F to get into full screen mode and either escape, or again, as in the lesson, I can use F again to get back out of full screen mode. And because F is now full screen, we now will use G to add the flag for our problem. And just as in the bookmarks, we can always hit T to add our tags. And again, the W, A, S, and D keys will also function similarly to the arrow keys in this view. And things do work a little bit differently in our guided practice mode. Here, we can't push to the right to go to the next problem. We need to answer this problem first. So maybe we'll try to answer this as answer choice C. Then if we hit Enter, we can move on and see our solution here. And now that we've done this problem, we can press to the right or press our D key in order to move to the next problem. And if we press back to the left, we can now go back to the previous problem that we've already worked during this guided practice session. Or we can move back to the right, answer our next question, and that's how our right and left arrows will function in guided practice. Again, just as in the Browse All Problems, up and down doesn't do anything, and in this case we're in full screen mode the whole time, so F doesn't do anything as well. But we can still tag our problem if we want to do it that way, or if we want to press the flag button, which is now G, we can add our flag to the problem. Now in guided practice, we have to do one problem before the next problem shows up, but that's not the case for our timed quizzes. So if we start a timed quiz, we actually can use the arrow keys from the very beginning to go all the way back and forth through all the questions in our timed quiz. If we hit C and we hit Enter, in this case, nothing's going to happen because we're not actually going to submit this problem until we've finished answering all the questions for the quiz or using our review button here to end our quiz. And of course, the same thing would be true for our sample exams. We can move left and right through the problems there as well. Now let's get into our last set of features for today, and those involve our discuss threads. So in our discussion forum, we have really two different kinds of threads. If we're in the preliminary courses, we have threads that are dedicated to each problem in our practice tab. And so if we're in one of those problems, one of the things that's really useful to be able to do is to be able to get back to the video solution quickly without having to go back to the practice tab and find that problem. So now we've got a link to the video solution here for any problem that has a video solution to allow us to get directly to that video solution. Now in the other sorts of threads, the ones that aren't associated to a specific practice problem, we have a link in the same location that goes to the lesson itself. So again, here you don't have to go back to the Learn tab and navigate to the right lesson. We can just click on this button and that's going to take us directly to the lesson that that discussion thread is concerned with. And moving back to our discussion threads, the last new features that I want to mention today involve our editing window. So if we go into our advanced editor, I want to notice that if we click on our image button here, we're going to be able to add an image to this post. So let me cancel out of that and go back out of here. I want to go back into this problem thread here and notice that in the top solution, I've got a series of equations here. So what I think I'll do is go ahead and take a screenshot of maybe this part right here. It's actually pretty easy, but just as an example, I'm going to get that image ready. So now I can go to my advanced editor, hit my image button, and just drag this over here and open that. So what you'll see happening is that it's going to essentially upload your image, store that in a location that we can control, and give you a link to that image right here in your editor. So if I do my preview or my split screen, what's going to happen is I'm going to see that image show up. So I could clip that little piece right out of that solution, and then I could actually type in here before that, this is the part that I'm confused about. And so you can see this is the part I'm confused about, and I've attached the image. It'll be very easy for my instructor to come along and see exactly what it is that I'm confused about. The other new thing that you can do here, instead of just adding images, which again, that's a feature that you can use in your lesson notes. The feature you can't use in your lesson notes, but that does work here at this point, is the add a file. So you can actually click on this button and add an entire file if you want to. And if you add a file, for instance, let's just add our same image again. This time it's going to be as a file though. What happens is actually we'll get a link to the file as part of the attachments for our post. So now if I save this, go back to my main part here, you can see that it's all going to be available here. I see that I've got one attachment and I've got my image link there as well. And then whenever we submit this thread, we'll see that image showing up in line, and we'll also have the attachment available. And so those are our updates for TIA Study 3.4. We're excited to roll out our lesson notes. We think that's going to be a very useful feature for you. And we hope the keyboard shortcuts and the discussion links will also make your studying more efficient. We'll be back soon with more updates, but for now, thank you so much for watching. Have a great day.